Undroppables Playbook, a football podcast. With your hosts, Ashley and Michael, please sit back and enjoy the show.
Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Undroppables Playbook, presented by the Undroppables and sponsored by Analyst Depot and Underdog. I'm your host, Ashley. This is your other host, Michael Duncan.
Hey everyone, I'm depressed.
So am I. It's just what being a fan of an NFC East team really does to you.
Oh, it's great. And somehow today we're really going to be killing your team and not mine, which is going to feel great.
Yeah, I was writing our show sheet in like an hour, just spent on pulling stats from the Giants, and I couldn't stop because it's just there's so much to talk about. That is just a dumpster fire. But we'll get to that later. This is episode 4 of the Undroppables Playbook. We have done 2 episodes of our normal content, and last week's episode was an interview with Steve Wyche, which was really, really awesome. We were so lucky to get him to come on. So if you missed that, you can find that on any of your streaming platforms where you usually listen to your podcasts, or on the Undroppables YouTube page, because that was a live stream, so it does have video. But that was a really, really cool interview, and I would definitely urge you to go watch that.
He's a great guy. We talked about a lot of different things, not just football. We talked about his history with HBCUs, his history in reporting, some of the more major stories that he's done, such as the Mike Vick dogfighting ring and the first time that Colin Kaepernick took a knee. He just has so many amazing stories, so much incredible insight about the NFL, and so much more than just football. It's definitely worth a listen. And I'm not just saying that as a guy that would benefit from you listening to it. So
yeah. Yep, exactly. Like I said, if you're just a fan of football, that is something you should listen to. He a lot of stories that you've read have been him behind the scenes, and you've definitely seen him on ESPN, on NFL Network. You've seen a lot of his content, so definitely watch. And on the Mike Vick thing, I didn't know ESPN had a 2-part documentary on Mike Vick.
Yeah,
I watched that. I haven't been on ESPN's original content in a while. To sit down and watch I was looking for a 30 for 30, and I found that because I am currently stripping the wallpaper in this bedroom, so I needed something to watch while I do that, and I put that on, and that was such a good documentary.
There's a lot of really, really awesome documentaries about that kind of stuff. They did one recently that I haven't actually even really been able to watch on Roy Halladay, former Phillies pitcher that died. I haven't watched it. I've heard it's really good. I just know that I'll bawl my eyes out when I watch it. I'm not emotionally ready to yet. So, but they've done an incredible job with a lot of those types of stories, and it's very interesting learning about all that stuff. So,
yeah, the Mike Vick one was really cool, and a lot of it was they actually had him on. It wasn't other people talking about him. They had him on there, kind of coming to terms with everything he did. And you're a Phillies fan, an Eagle fan. So they talked about that a lot and his stint with the Eagles. So that was really cool. So watch our podcast, and then once you're done, you can go watch that on ESPN.
Not a sponsor.
But not a sponsor. No. Imagine. That would be wild.
That'd be pretty cool. But speaking of bawling our eyes out, it's time to look at the injuries of the past week or 2 weeks in the NFL, roughly. So
yeah, there's a lot of them. It was another brutal week. It seems like it was last week we had the reaping of quarterbacks. This week seemed like everybody else. A
lot of wide receivers and a lot of running backs.
Yeah, those were huge. One of the biggest stories was Christian McCaffrey. In his game against the Texans, suffered a hamstring injury. Right after he suffered the hamstring injury, he was ruled out immediately and spent nearly 30 minutes in the medical tent. So that was a bad sign. They came out later saying it was a hamstring injury and he's out. They're not putting him on IR because they expect him or are hoping to have him back before 3 weeks. Like we said 2 episodes ago, IR means you have to be out for a minimum of 3 weeks. So they're expecting him to be out for less, so he's not on IR, but hamstring injuries are tricky, and Shuba Hubbard is the next man up, and he got to play a little bit, and that was fun to watch. Dalvin Cook, the Vikings running back, sprained his ankle in week 2. He didn't play in week 3 and is still listed as questionable for week 4. Alexander Madison was his backup. He was, if you play fantasy football, was listed as one of the top handcuffs in fantasy, and he kind of showed that this week. He played really, really well.
Yeah, he's been that backup there for what feels like a lifetime at this point.
Yeah.
And this was, I think, really like his first time like really actually showing out, because it feels like every other time he's gotten an opportunity, he's either been injured himself or he just kind of fell flat on his face. But this week he really showed his value in fantasy, and he was able to really, make Dalvin Cook owners a little less sad.
Yeah, I also think that comes with knowing that Dalvin Cook was out before the game. It wasn't like he left the game, so he had a little bit more, time to prepare. So that was good. James White, the Patriots running back, suffered a hip subluxation, and for our listeners, that is what Fitzpatrick had. So he suffered that during week 3 and is expected to miss the rest of the season, which is very upsetting. He was outproducing all. I mean, they've run, I don't know if you want to call it by committee or whatnot, whatever the Patriots system is, because they kind of have it is by committee, but it's not the way you see the Jets running back by committee. It's kind of a different approach.
Nobody really runs things like the Jets.
Yeah, and the Patriots kind of have always had this weird system with their running backs. So he had been producing really well and was the top pass catching back there. So that definitely hurts the Patriots, especially going into this week in Tom Brady's revenge game back in Foxborough. The next injury is T. Higgins, the Bengals wide receiver, is out for the second week in a row with a shoulder injury. It's kind of all that's been reported. He was ruled out fairly early for this week, so that's not a great sign.
I think the bright side there is that he was questionable leading up, generally speaking, to this last Sunday's game. And obviously he's on a short week. He plays on Thursday night, which is why he was ruled out so early. Yep. But I think after this Thursday night game, he's going to have a 10-day window to kind of get back. And I think I would be very surprised if he missed a third game after, this Thursday night game, considering the long week of rest. So that's the bright side there.
I agree. And then both of 2 wide receivers from the Giants came out of the game with hamstring injuries, Sterling Shepard and Darius Slayton. They both also missed practice today. Very, 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 very bad.
And I think they're both listed as week to week right now. I mean, I don't think either of them are playing this week.
Don't do that to me.
I'm being honest. Hey, you have Kadarius Toney. Don't worry.
Don't put that bad juju on me.
You've got Kadarius Toney. No, Juju's on the Steelers.
Yeah, haha.
I'm funny.
He is a bad juju.
AJ Brown injured his hamstring as well. Yep. Again, I feel like he always has leg injuries.
Yeah.
I believe he's also week to week. He's most likely going to miss this week, along with his running mate Julio. Is questionable now with a leg injury for this upcoming week. So it might be Nick Westbrook something at wide receiver for the Titans, I guess.
Something. Yeah.
Yeah. That's good.
Yeah. We mentioned the bad juju. Juju Smith-Schuster is out, suffered a rib injury this week. I didn't see his listing, so I think he's still listed as questionable. Obviously plays on Pittsburgh. Elijah Moore, the Jets wide receiver, suffered a concussion during week 3. KJ Hamler, the Broncos wide receiver, suffered a torn ACL. Hamler time.
My king.
I love time KJ is over.
Hamler. There was a story that came out about him that he got I think it was when he bought an apartment in Denver, he got one that was really high up because he was afraid of bears. If that doesn't make you love KJ Hamler, I don't know what does. I don't know the reasoning, but I remember reading that and I was like, I already like this guy and now I love him. So,
oh my God,
he's afraid of bears in Denver, and I don't blame him. I would be too. I just didn't really know that they were a problem.
Yeah, breaking into apartment complexes.
I have no clue. I don't know if he saw one of those stories on the news where the bear just is hanging out in the backyard. But yeah. KJ Hamler seemed to be very touched by that story, and I was touched by his story. So
yeah. Exactly. Well, Hamler time is officially over for this season. Scotty Miller, the Buccaneers wide receiver, got a really bad case of turf toe, and he's moving to IR.
It always sounds so funny. It's not. It's it's a serious thing. But
it is. Yeah. But it does sound. I agree with you. Anytime I'm turf toe, it just sounds like a funny injury. How did the turf do that?
But then again, if I had turf toe, I'm sure I'd be in a wheelchair for 6 months. So
we know. We talk about your injuries every week. We put you on the injury report every week. Blake Martinez, the Giants' inside linebacker, tore his ACL this week. He is out for the season. That, like, all right, like Slayton and Shepard is what it is. They're week to week, but losing Blake Martinez is absolutely gut wrenching for the Giants, especially
having a good season.
Yeah, having a great season. We lost our best offensive lineman in Nick Gates last week. Now we lose one of our best defenders in Blake Martinez. So brutal for the Giants right now. Basically, the entire Eagles offensive line is out. I'm not even going to break them down for you. It's just
everyone except Jason Kelsey and Lane Johnson, which are a good two to not have. Jordan Mailata might come back, but everyone else is dead.
Yeah, RIP. And then one good piece of news for our injury report is that Rashad Bateman was moved off of IR after suffering a groin injury in preseason, and we are officially sending out the bat signal for Rashad Bateman to come back. I don't think we heard if it's this week or next week, but he is officially off of IR, which means he's eligible to play this week. Yeah, that's what I've read. And so coming off of IR now means he is eligible to play this week.
And they didn't have to take him off. So my guess, I wouldn't be surprised if he was active this week. I'm sure they'll take it slow if they need to, but I mean, he's into the practice window. So that's good to hear.
I'm so excited to watch him play. I have him in so many fantasy leagues that I picked him up. He was one of my favorites to watch in preseason. I'm so happy to have him.
He was great in college. He was a really good wide receiver.
He was one of the ones that I watched pretty intently coming into the draft, this last draft cycle.
Alrighty. So with that, enough with the depressing news, I guess. We're gonna move into some of the game breakdowns from this past week. Just some of our favorites to watch and our least favorites, I guess. Obviously, I already talked a little bit about the Eagles. I'm not going to talk anymore about the Eagles. They suck. They ran the ball twice, which apparently was an NFL record. They had 3 running plays. Miles Sanders had 2 carries, and it was really bad. But on the brighter side, a much better game than Monday Night Football was the Chargers versus the Chiefs. The Chiefs are now sitting at 1-2, which is kind of crazy. And at the same time, I'm not really that concerned about them, other than the fact that it seems like their division is a lot more competitive than it's been in recent years, which is just really exciting. I mean, I think the Chargers were a lot of people's favorites going into this season of being like a that dark horse Super Bowl favorite type of thing. Not Super Bowl favorite, but just a Super Bowl contender.
Yeah.
And it's exciting to see them beat a really good team in the Chiefs. And obviously, they're still only 1-2. Or no, sorry, they're 2-1. No, they're 1-2. No, they're 2-1. Yeah. I'm sorry. I don't know why I said I don't know why I'm thinking they're 1-2. They beat the Washington football team week 1. But yeah, they're a really good team. Justin Herbert played out of his mind. He definitely had the best game of his season. And I think what was even more interesting was something that was getting a lot of flack on Twitter, especially, was the Chargers' decision to really, they got into the red zone at the end of the game, and they didn't waste any time. They went right for the end zone. They didn't try and run the clock out at all. They just scored a touchdown. They said, Mahomes be damned, time be damned. We're scoring this touchdown because we can right now, and we'll worry about what comes next. It's not a popular decision, but it worked.
Yeah.
And it's hard to say, it's hard to argue with it because it worked. There's always going to be that process over, results and whatever. Results over process. Was it a bad process that you got lucky with? Who knows? But hearing Austin Eckler talk on I want to say it was the Pat McAfee show this week. It might have even been this morning. We're recording this on Wednesday. He was talking about, what's different in Los Angeles this year in compared to past regimes that he's been with. And it just says the things that he said, he spoke so passionately about his new head coach, Brandon Staley, and just saying, he has us prepared every week for the exact game plan for the game every week. And that sounds simple, but he expanded and he's like, and I'm not just saying the simple stuff, everyone in the entire organization knows what everyone is going to do heading into this game. He sits down and he explains the offensive, defensive, and special teams game plan to everyone in the organization, from the GM all the way down to the training staff. They know how they're approaching the game. They know what the game plan is and how they plan on executing their game plan every single week. And that's so interesting because Brandon Staley was such a great hire. He was an incredible defensive coordinator for, I believe, just 1 year in LA before, or in the other LA team, the Rams, before getting hired by the Chargers. And it's just really interesting to hear a guy speak so passionately about that type of organization. And it really is showing up on the field. I mean, the Chargers have been kind of like a very talented team for the past couple of years, even before Herbert, and they've never been able to put it together, especially on defense. And they're really clicking this year on all cylinders. They just beat the Chiefs, who are obviously a Super Bowl favorite every single year. So I think they're legit, and it was cool to see that.
I agree. And I think showing the entire organization, like, your game plan is a really good thing. Like, we talked a little bit about Mack Jones, like, reading defensive playbooks and stuff to be able to prepare better for when he's on the field. So it kind of creates this super cohesive, instead of like 3 units of offensive, defensive, and special teams, it creates a very cohesive thing that it's like, we know what we're getting into, that I know what's coming after me. If I'm the quarterback, I know what's coming after me and what they're going to do. You know, when you have to make these tough decisions, understanding the game plan if your specific job doesn't work out at that one specific play. So I really like that. And I think on that touchdown that they scored, like, I go back and forth because it's like, it's the Chiefs, so you don't want to leave too much time on the clock, but also, like, it's the Chiefs, score, you know, that it's like, you need to put up the points. So usually I would say run out the clock a little bit, but for this specific situation, I really did like the call of actually putting points on the board and saying, you know, we kind of have to risk it all and put all our money down on the table and say, let's go and score, and then have faith that the people coming up after us will do their job in our game plan that we prepared for and stop them.
Yeah, you can't really risk just putting a field goal on the board. So, I mean, I
Exactly.
tend to agree. You take, I mean, a win is a win. You got the win. You took the points, and that's awesome. And in another fun game, I don't think it was nearly as close as the box score might seem this week, but we had the Rams taking on the Bucks. The Rams are now 3-0. The Bucks are now 2-1 after the Rams beat the Bucks 34-24. And that was like the Fox game of the week, 4:25 prime time. And God, it just never really, maybe this is just me, it just never really felt like the Bucks were in the game. And I think that's saying something. I think that's saying how good the Rams are. Like, Matthew Stafford was a preseason pick of mine to be an MVP candidate. You know, I didn't know if he'd win necessarily, but I loved him going into the season. And he's been playing out of his mind, but he looks so dialed in. This offense looks so easy. Like, it just never feels like
streamlined.
Yeah.
It's so streamlined that it's like every single play seems like they're almost scrimmaging. Like, you know what I mean? That it's like it's so effortless. I think that's the best word, is that the offense is completely effortless, or at least it looks that way. I know it's not, but it looks completely effortless, that everything they're doing is so exactly how they want it.
And obviously, like, yeah, it was a decently close game, but it really does look like the Rams offense is just playing Madden on easy difficulty. Like, Matthew Stafford takes the snap and he already knows where the ball's going. He already knows what's going to happen with the defense. And Sean McVay's thought, 3 plays ahead, like, everything is clicking. And I don't know how they lose a game. Like, because on top of that, their defense has been incredible. I mean, Aaron Donald is Aaron Donald, but their defense as a whole barely feels like it's taken a step back from being the number 1 defense. I mean, yeah, they gave up being the number 1 defense last year. Yeah, they gave up 24 points to Tampa Bay, but it didn't feel like they did. I mean, Tom Brady had to fight hard for those 24 points.
Yeah. And keeping, like, 24 is a decent amount of points, but keeping Tom Brady to 24 points is different than keeping, another quarterback to 24 points. Yep. So I think, I don't know, the Rams have been a pick of mine to go to the Super Bowl. I've said that for a little while, and I think, like you said, I just don't really see how they lose. Like, I know they're going to end up losing a couple, but there's a great chance they don't. And I just think, like I said, it looks so effortless out there. And I love Matt Stafford, but I expected a little bit of like a buffer period for it to kind of click. And there's not one. Like
the world is just now getting to recognize how freaking good of a quarterback he is.
Yep. And then I saw a tweet this week that was like, people actually thought the Lions' issues were Matt Stafford.
No.
Like there were people out there who thought that, and like, look at him. Like, it's like a little butterfly. Like, he's blossoming. It's so beautiful to see.
He's not perfect, and there's going to be mistakes along the way, but he's been incredible. And also shout out to Deshaun Jackson, who is still really, really fast. 3 receptions, 120 yards, and a touchdown. There's very few people in the NFL that can do that, let alone in their, I think, 14th season in the NFL. So shout out to him.
Yeah.
It's not going to happen every week or most weeks, but.
Yeah, and I'm curious to see for the Bucs how this transfers over to this week's game for them, which is, again, Tom Brady's revenge game back in Foxborough, which, if I was a Patriots fan, I would have wanted the Buccaneers to win this past week, because we all know how Tom Brady is, and when he loses, he comes with a vengeance on top of the vengeance of everything that happened with the Patriots and leaving and coming back for the first time. So I those who don't know, I live in Massachusetts. All of my friends, my boyfriend are Patriots fans. It is miserable. But so I got to watch that game with them, and as they were watching the Bucs play, they like Tom Brady. They're not one of the people that have like a hatred for Tom Brady after he left.
If you are, you're stupid.
It's so stupid. Like, he gave you all of those Super Bowls. I hate the people that hate him, like, for leaving. Like, it pisses me off. But so they root for Tom Brady, but in general, it was, we need the Bucs to win, because we can't have like 2 chips on Tom Brady's shoulder coming into this game.
Plus all the other ones he has the rest of the time.
Yeah, exactly. So if I'm a Patriots fan and I watch that game, I'm terrified. We know the Bucs did not look their best against the Rams, but that kind of does not mean much. When Tom Brady plays with a vengeance, we all know that is terrifying. I actually really wanted to go to the game. Do you know the tickets opened up at $1,500 to go to that game?
Not shocked.
When they opened?
On top of all the other reasons why this game is incredible, it's also the NFL just doing the best that they could possibly do, because Tom Brady is less than 100 yards from breaking the all-time passing yardage record. He will do it in Foxborough, where he won 6 Super Bowls and played, I don't even know how many years of his career.
You couldn't write a better story if you tried. I actually watched a video about the NFL making their schedule this year. It's on YouTube from NFL Films. It was really interesting. They talked a little bit about, scheduling this game and why they schedule games like this, like once in a lifetime type games. The tickets now for that game are down to like $300 or $400, which is, a fairly decent price to go watch the Tom Brady revenge game. But yeah, I think it's going to be interesting. I don't think the Patriots look in good enough shape to be a contender in this game, to be honest. No. I think they're going to put up points, but I don't think it's going to be a fight.
I don't even know if they're going to put up points.
I do think they put up a handful of points. I don't know if they're touchdowns or if they're all just straight up field goals, but I think they
5.
Well, you know what I mean. Like,
I think they might put up 5.
Okay, 5.
I'm not even sure the crowd is going to be on the Patriots side.
That's what we were talking about. Like, if you're going to this game, like, as a lifelong Patriots fan, like, what do you do? Like, you love Tom Brady
jersey.
Yeah.
You understand that you want Mack Jones to take a step forward, but honestly, you're rooting for the guy that gave you 6 Super Bowl rings to break the all-time passing yardage record in the stadium that he should be breaking it in.
Yep.
And you're just happy you get to see it, but you're rooting for Tom Brady. Maybe that's maybe that's like breaking a rule, an unwritten rule. It probably is, but there's no other scenario. Like,
no.
Do you really think the Colts weren't rooting for Peyton Manning when he came back, when their team wasn't good? I guess they were good. They had Andrew Luck at that time, but like, this is such an unparalleled scenario. I don't know.
Yeah.
I would be rooting for Tom Brady, I think.
Yeah, and I am. Like, I mean, I'm not a Patriots fan, so I'm rooting for the Bucs to win, which might have me attacked by all my friends later, but I just think it's going to be interesting. It's a great storyline. I think that's more of the interest in this game, is the storyline rather than the game itself, because the Patriots are not looking as good as, I don't want to say expected, because we didn't really know what to expect with the Patriots this year.
Jack's picked them to win double games.
Yeah, that was.
Jack sucks.
Yeah, that was crazy. My sports book opened up an entire new section on the sports book called Brady/Gronk props,
I love it.
where right, like where it's basically just a million bets about Tom Brady's like breaking the record, like what is the distance on the play going to be, who's going to catch it, all of this
I hope
crazy
it's
stuff.
Gronk.
I hope it's Gronk. I really hope it's Gronk.
I'm praying it's won a touchdown, exactly like
Yes.
Drew Brees' was, because I remember where I was watching Drew Brees'. I hope it's a touchdown, and I hope it's a Gronk.
Yeah.
And I don't know, man. I'm like,
What do
I'm
they
not even
do?
a Tom
What do
Brady
they
fan.
do when they
I
do it? Do
don't-
they like look to the stands and like
Oh,
be
Tom's
aggressive?
probably Tom's gonna treat it like it's any other pass. He's gonna be like, yeah, great, we just took the lead, or okay, great, now we're up 49-0. Like,
Yeah.
he's gonna treat it like he's Tom Brady. But I'm honestly, I'm more curious like what they're gonna do like in the stadium. Like I remember Peyton Manning recorded a video for Drew Brees. Like that they made a big hubbub about it, as they should when Drew Brees broke the record. So it's gonna be interesting to see what happens. I'm excited for the television of it all.
Yeah. My friends have been talking about for a couple of weeks, months, once they found out that this game was scheduled, about, you know, kind of the theatrics of it all, especially pregame too. Like you like the videos and stuff. Like, does Tom Brady like sit there and like acknowledge the crowd when he walks in, or like watch his video, or does he like stay in the locker room for the video? So there's a whole lot of, and I don't see that being that far out of the range of possibilities that they play the video and he kind of just walks out after, because Tom Brady, I don't know, like as much as he is theatrics, I don't know that he like loves to participate in the theatrics right before a game. So I don't know. I think it'll be interesting. And like I said, the word of the day is theatrics, and I'm excited to watch it all as a I don't have any skin in the game, so I'm excited.
I agree completely. And that will bring us, I guess, to the final I guess look back at this past week, and you want to talk about a team that's very close to your heart.
Are they lately?
Yes, because or else you wouldn't be this upset.
Yeah. So Dunks earlier today mentioned a segment called Put a Fork in 'em, for teams that are basically done for the season. They're cooked. And we're going to start out, we're going to do like one a week on teams that kind of are just done. Like they're going to continue playing football, but meaningless, garbage time football. And I'm so thrilled to present you our first Put a Fork in 'em, which is the New York Football Giants. Oh God, I really don't even know where to start.
All right, I'll lead you. What are you doing right now if you're John Mara?
I'm firing Jason Garrett.
Okay.
I think I'm keeping Joe Judge through the end of the season. I don't think I'm going to do a head coaching change in the middle of the season, but number one is firing Jason Garrett. That has to be number one on the list. I don't understand how he's still here when his schemes and his coaching abilities are not translating to the team's needs. It's not like focusing in on skills of players. Like every last one of these players has a completely different skill set. And that's why Giants fans were so excited about what this season was going to be, was because it wasn't like we had three of the same guys, like three slot receivers running same routes and stuff like that. We had guys who were Kenny Galladay being the contested catch specialist. We were, as much as we didn't love the draft pick of Kadarius Toney, we had a gadget guy who could do crazy things after the catch. We had a beautiful slot receiver in Sterling Shepard who plays better when he has good receivers around him.
You just called him beautiful.
He is beautiful. Have you seen that, man? Have you seen that?
Not recently, I'm going to be honest, but keep going.
You've seen him on the field because he was doing good up until he got hurt.
Yeah,
his first 2 weeks were great, but you know, it's just like you're not playing up to these players' strengths, and it's so obvious. Like, I had some stats here that were, so in 17 games with Garrett, Daniel Jones has only thrown 13 touchdowns, and for reference, he threw 24 in 13 games with Shermer. Jones' attempts of 20 plus yards in 2020 to 21, so 17 games, was 50, and his 20 plus yards attempts in 2019 to 2020 was 54 through 12 games. So he threw 4 more in 5 less games. And it's just like, you're not even playing up to your quarterback's strengths. He was the best deep ball passer in the league last year, and we can't get you. You were not running plays that are getting him to throw long distance balls. You're throwing short, which has always been his biggest weakness. He didn't throw a touchdown between 10 and 19 yards last year. Why are we running these short plays? We're not stretching out the field, which is why we're leaving crazy amount of time on the clock, why we're kicking field goals all the time, because we can't stretch out the field because you're not using a deep ball quarterback. Like, it's so clear and it's so frustrating.
But how much of that is Dave Gettleman's fault?
Because
he sucks at his job.
He sucks. That's the other thing. He's fired. If I'm John Mara, he's fired. It's just like you could make some sort of I won't, but you can make some sort of, excuse for this system right now with Garrett and with Judge, because it's like still a new system, even though it's been here for 2 years. So it's like, whatever you could anymore. Exactly. But if you want to make that it's people are still settling in, whatever, it's not that, but whatever, I could see where you're coming from. Dave Gettleman has set this team up for failure. The first time he traded back was this year, and that was because you guys sniped us on Devontae Smith. That was it.
But you got
that's
Kadarius
why you
Toney.
moved back. We got Kadarius Toney. Wonderful.
It's a good thing Rashad Bateman was off the board.
Yeah, so great. You left all of these guys there, and you go with Kadarius Toney. So that's a weird pick to start. Should have left him for Urban Meyer. So I'll say it.
I agree. Then James Robinson would have been the running back. So
yeah, exactly. So it's frustrating. Dave Gettleman, it's the third time in 5 years that this team has started 0-3. You're the one building this team, I guess, and you're picking up players and picking up coaches that are not meshing together. It's just, you have kind of busted on so many of your draft picks that it's clear that you're kind of harming us. With this long haul of everything that's gone on in the last 10 years and what Dave Gettleman has been behind, it's clear that a lot of the issues stem from him not understanding what the fuck to do.
I like Saquon Barkley. I really, really like Saquon Barkley. He's an amazing player and probably a generational talent at running back. But one, you shouldn't invest that high in running back.
Yeah.
You shouldn't. And two, if you do, and then you do nothing to support him, that just makes the investment double as bad. And you've done nothing. Oh, okay. He's tried and swung and missed repetitively to make not even an okay offensive line. Seeing what Saquon has done with one of the worst offensive lines in the NFL since he's entered is incredible. Imagining what he could do with just a decent offensive line would be something else. And I can't imagine putting him behind some of the best offensive lines in the NFL. I mean, it feels like 99% of his production was from when Eli Manning would just dump it off to him because Eli Manning would get rid of the ball in 2 seconds, which maybe that accounted for some of the offensive line's liabilities because you had Eli and you had a guy that he's just better. He was more experienced and he knew what he had to do at that stage in his career to have any success on offense. Daniel Jones doesn't understand that. And he's not going to – the other players in this offense cannot make up for the offensive line.
Yeah, I think that's it. This offensive line is not doing a good enough job, and that's because it hasn't been invested in. And that's another Dave Gettleman issue, is that, like you said, you want to draft Saquon Barkley that high? Go ahead. I love Saquon. I would have loved him no matter where he went. But you can't keep throwing him up the middle and hoping for the best. It's not working, especially with him coming off of injury. You could see he has some hesitancy in his routes, kind of dancing in the backfield by himself, which like I said, I've talked about that in a Twitter thread before about athlete mental health when returning from injury and kind of the psychological game that these athletes have to go through coming back from injury. So imagine you have to go through the psychology of coming back from a torn ACL, and then you have to do it with a horrible offensive line who's going to do nothing to help you. So that is creating issues for Saquon and is going to lead to him getting hurt again. And that is so frustrating because I hate the injury tag placed on Saquon. I understand it, but I hate it. But it's going to stem from the fact that he doesn't have any help. And on the fact of not having any help, I don't think Daniel Jones has any help either. And it's hard because it's I would love to call this guy my franchise quarterback. I really do love him. And I like the way he plays. I do. I think it's fun to watch. Like he hasn't thrown an interception this year, so that got better. But the coaching is not doing anything to help him. The players are not really doing anything to help him. And I think that stems from the coaching. But it's really hard. Like, why are you not creating schemes that will help this guy? When we were playing Washington, that one opening drive, they reported that Daniel Jones called all of his own plays. Do you know how beautiful that drive was? That drive was like textbook football. Everything was playing perfect and it looked beautiful. That was a team, if they played like that all the time, that you could see going places. And then you hand the mic over to Jason Garrett to call the plays, and you go back to what? Slant and curl routes 24/7. Like, that's all you know how to run. Why on 3rd and 3 are you just running 2 wide receivers up the sidelines? No, it was 3rd and like 3, and they ran receivers down both ends of the sidelines just straight out. Why is that the play you're calling on 3rd and 3? Like, you need to be more creative with this. He has ran one creative play, and it was against the Cowboys last year when we like fake punt, or it was a fake field goal. I don't know if anyone remembers that, but it was beautiful. And it worked, but there was a penalty, of course, because
a fake field goal isn't even Jason Garrett. That's the special teams coordinator.
Yeah, but they had said something about Jason Garrett actually participating and making that call. So who knows? But it's like you can't get creative with the playbook, which is making everything we do expected. And how are you supposed to win a football game when everybody knows exactly what you're going to do? You don't.
I mean, what you told me before the show was that you are not going to be surprised looking at their schedule if they go 0-11. And chances are, if and when that happens, or if anything close to that happens, and they get to the end of the season, they're going to be competing for the number 1 overall pick. And I think the most likely scenario is you see Dave Gettleman get fired. You see Joe Judge get fired because he is a garbage head coach. Yep. He is terrible. He is a joke. He is not what he thinks he is. And
I stood behind Joe Judge for so long because at first I loved him. I really did. And I had high expectations for him. But I said to you before the show too, for anyone who watched the movie Miracle, about the U.S. men's ice hockey team in the Olympics, where the coach, Herb Brooks, had them basically skating back and forth until they caved to his will or whatever. Joe Judge has tried to Herb Brooks' team into being what he wants them to be, and it's not working, and it's doing is creating resentment on this team, and it's not transferring into anything other than laps at the practice field. It's not working, and it's not creating wins on the field during game time.
Laps work when you're in high school. Yeah. Maybe they work in college, but when you're getting paid to play football at the professional level and you're a grown man, having another grown man yell at you to run around in a circle because you screwed something up that you probably know you screwed up anyway, especially if you're a veteran who's been on any other team with any other head coach. No. If you're winning, you can get away with that. If you're Bill Belichick, because you have 20 years history of winning, you can get away with that. Joe Judge, who they have one of the, I think, the worst record in the NFL since that picture was taken on the boat.
Oh, the boat curse.
Like one of the worst teams in the NFL over the past however many years. You can't get away with that. And Joe Judge does not know how to be a leader of men. He thinks he knows how to be a leader of boys. And they don't respect him. I mean, he's supposed to be this, leader of men, disciplinarian type of guy, a Bill Belichick. And then they go offsides on a game-winning field goal to allow the other team another shot at beating them. And not even to mention, because now I'm going off, because now I'm upset about Joe Judge.
You should.
You're going to get on national television at the end of last season because you went, did you 6 or 7 wins last year?
I think it was 6.
You had 6 wins, and you went on national television to cry about the fact that the Eagles took out their starting quarterback in a game that meant nothing to them because then Washington won and then won the division. You are going to cry about the fact that you thought you deserved to get in to the NFL playoffs with 6 wins. You're going to cry because a different team didn't try their absolute hardest to beat another team so you could get in the playoffs. That is some of the biggest loser energy garbage I have ever heard.
If you wanted it that bad, you should have played. Like you should have won another game, and then it wouldn't come down to another team.
If you wanted it that bad, win more than 6 games. And I get it. Every team wants it. That's fine. I'm not questioning how much he wants it. I'm not. I am sure he really wanted to get into the playoffs. But holy shit, that is just one of the most embarrassing things I've ever seen. Like, you are just going to cry about it on national television about another team losing a game. Like, come on.
Yeah. And then you're going to sit here this week. You're going to sit here this week at the press conference and walk out and be like, we're going to be all right, guys. We're all right. We'll be all right. No, fans have had enough, and it's rightfully so. And first, before I get into that, you can't be, like you said, disciplinarian. You can't be a disciplinarian and scream discipline from the rooftops and then have your team be so undisciplined game after game after game, drive after drive. The penalties are killing us. If you were this disciplinarian that you claim to be, this wouldn't be happening. So something's wrong. Either they're just willfully not listening to you, or you're just not actually telling them what you want them to do. But yeah, fans are rightfully annoyed. And you can't just sit here and be like, we're going to be all right and all gung-ho and woe is me. Like, I don't feel bad anymore. I don't feel bad for saying I'm embarrassed lately to be a Giants fan, because it's everything is an issue, and it shouldn't be. Like, going into the season, Giants fans had felt the most optimism that they had in years. We heard all of this offseason talk about all these amazing things. And I know some of it was camp talk and coach talk and just regular offseason beat reporters doing their jobs. But the puzzle pieces were aligning, like, to look good, and that this team on paper was going to be better. And it's simply worse. We paid Kenny Golladay, 4 years, $75 million to
a lot of money.
Barely catch some balls. Like, because, and I'm not putting that on Kenny. Like, I understand
He's been injured.
The issues. He's been injured. He was coming off. You know, he said even before week 1 that he was rusty, which I would prefer him not have been rusty, but
he didn't play the offense
sucks.
Year, so.
The offensive line sucks. So you're paying him that much money, and then you're not building your game plan around him. You're drafting somebody in the first round. You're not building your game plan around him. And then you have the nerve to sit here and be like, we're going to be all right. We'll be fine. And then as a fan, you're stuck in this kind of black hole of like, do I want us to win a few games this season, where then it's going to be the status quo of we go, you know, middle of the pack, nothing happens, we don't get a great draft pick, and everybody gets to keep their jobs and save face? Or do you want this team to, I don't want them to tank, but like, or does this, you're kind of rooting for losses at this point, because then you get a high draft pick and you get to say goodbye to all of these people who have wrecked the organization recently. I don't know. You're stuck in this stupid area. And like you said, there's a very good chance that this team can go 0-11 through the first 11 games, because our next opponents are our end of schedule is the hardest remaining schedule in the NFL, with Saints, Cowboys, Rams, Panthers, Chiefs, Raiders, Bucks, Eagles, Dolphins, Chargers, Cowboys, Eagles, Bears, Washington. That's a hard schedule, which is why we needed to come out of these first 3 weeks with 2 wins. We needed 3, but you needed to come out with at least 2 wins out of these first 2 games, and you didn't. And now there's a good chance that this team goes 0-11 with the hardest remaining schedule. Like, I don't know what happens in those last games, because being the Giants and the Eagles, we always win one, you always win one. So with the in the NFC East, I think the Cowboys are going to beat us that first game. Maybe we'll beat them in the second one, but the NFC East games are kind of up for grabs. But every other game, like, I think maybe you beat the Bears and the Dolphins. Everyone else is a loss. Like, and I don't even know what to think anymore. It's just a mess. And it's like everything is stacked against this team right now. Not even that it's stacked against it, but. And then Joe Judge is sitting there on national television and is like, I'll read you the quote. It says, about Darius, Tony saying, to say someone is going to just jump in and replicate completely what we do with these 2 guys, I don't think that's something we're going to look to do. It's going to be more about playing to his strengths, giving him his opportunity to get the ball in his hands and make some plays. You haven't done that yet. So now I'm supposed to believe you?
I think I know what all this means. It means stick a fork in them. They're done.
Stick a fork in
They're
them.
going to be competing for the number 1 overall
See you
pick.
guys next season.
And yeah, maybe next year's your year.
Yeah, we've said that for what, the last 10?
Well, yeah, no,
Poor Eli on his jersey retirement day. They booked this on jersey retirement day because we were the better team. We were supposed to win, and we didn't. And John Mara's in the hallway kicking over trash cans and screaming expletives. And poor Eli was probably he flipped off the double bird on national television the next day. So
yeah, but he was imitating Philly fans.
Yeah.
So, yep. Well, on a slightly brighter side, we're going to go through a couple teams that are having a successful start of their season. Yeah. And you and I are just going to discuss real quick, whether we think they're actually a contender, whether or not they're going to be able to make a deep postseason run, maybe even compete for a Super Bowl, or whether or not we think they are a pretender. And I will start by asking you about the Denver Broncos, who are 3-0 so far this season with Teddy Bridgewater as their starting quarterback, but with the caveat that the 3 teams they've beaten are New York, and Jacksonville. Both the Giants and the Jets in Jacksonville are all 0-3. What do you think?
I think they're more pretender than contender. I think we're kind of have on these rose-colored glasses to the team because of the 3 teams they've played and have looked really good. I think their defense has been their saving grace, and they have looked really, really good. But to me, I don't see this translating into like a deep postseason run. I think maybe they make the postseason, but I don't see them as an actual contender for making a very long run in the postseason.
I agree. I mean, they're 3-0, but they still might be the 4th best team in the AFC West. And part of that is because the AFC West has the Chargers, the Chiefs, and the Raiders. Mm-hmm. The 3-0 is very much due to the fact that they have a really easy schedule to start. I do think they're a very good team. Their defense is really solid. It has been for a long time. They're well coached. Teddy Bridgewater is playing really good football, but I don't know if that he's going to be able to carry them in higher scoring games against tougher defenses. And losing Jerry Jeudy and KJ Hamler is a big deal. Those injuries are starting to stack up. They've had trouble running the ball so far. So we're going to see, up until this past week. But I think maybe they sneak into the playoffs, but I don't see them really competing for a Super Bowl anytime soon. I see this more as a season to hopefully build off of.
Yep. And the next one is Panthers, currently sitting at 3-0. Their opponents so far have been the Jets, the Saints, and the Texans. Are they a contender or a pretender?
I think they're legit.
Do you?
I liked them before. I think they're more legit than the Broncos. I think they're very much going to make the playoffs. I hope, actually. That's really hard because the NFC is... The NFC West might see 4 teams in the playoffs, and I have trouble saying that the Panthers are better than the Seahawks, the Cardinals, the Rams, or the... What is the last team in the West? Why can't I think of it?
I honestly forget which ones you just named, so...
Rams, Seahawks, Cardinals, 49ers. I have trouble saying that the Panthers are better than 3 of those 4 teams, which is what they need to be to make the playoffs in my mind. That or be better than the Bucs. I don't know if they are. I think they're a very good team. I think they're a very young team, but I also think the loss of J.C. Horn is massive because he was playing out of his mind to start the season. He was playing incredibly well. This is, I think, he was like the 8th or 9th overall pick in the draft, cornerback. He just broke his leg, maybe in multiple places. I forget. He might be out for the whole season, but as of right now, they're not expecting the whole season. But regardless, they just traded for C.J. Henderson, which probably doesn't bode overly well for his availability anytime soon. I think they're a legit good team, but I think they're probably a year away from making actual noise in the postseason.
I agree, and I think it also depends on how Christian McCaffrey looks.
Yeah. Also, DJ Moore is a great player. I love DJ Moore.
Yeah.
I just wanted to mention his name.
Yeah, I know. We talked about that a little bit before the show, that when we were doing mock podcasts, that we were talking about players that were flying under the radar when we were like prepping for this show, and Dunks said DJ Moore.
I've loved DJ Moore since the minute he got drafted. He looks beautiful in that blue.
Yeah.
Now I call the player beautiful. It is really nice. I really want to buy a jersey because it's just a great blue. Them, the Lions, great blue choices around the league.
I need a vintage Panthers one I actually found a few sweatshirts. For everyone who doesn't know, I collect vintage NFL sweatshirts. I have my gorgeous little rack over here of vintage NFL sweatshirts, and I don't have a Panthers one yet.
So if you have one
Yeah.
you'd like to send it to Ashley, just message me
You
on
know where to
Twitter. You
find
can
me.
send it to me, and I will send it to Ashley. I wear
Yeah,
a size
totally.
large. Yep.
As do I.
Yep. So next up, the Cardinals. They are 3-0. They've played the Titans, the Vikings, and the Jaguars. Kyler Murray is playing out of his mind. DeAndre Hopkins is hobbled, but it doesn't seem to matter. And Rondale Moore might be one of the most electric players in the NFL as a rookie. What do you think? Contender or pretender?
I think they're a contender. I think that they have just looked. Kyler Murray almost looks like unbeatable. Like a lot of these defenses are having a really hard time keeping up with Kyler Murray, and now with
I would too. He's pretty fast.
Yeah, now with two tiny men running around the field in Kyler Murray and Rondale Moore, it's like
One way to put it.
It's just a lot of people are having a lot of trouble keeping up with them. I think D-Hop stays healthy. I think this team is a really big contender.
Yeah, I mean their defense is okay at best, probably. Chandler Jones is fantastic. JJ Watt is awesome. They're going to get pressure on the quarterback, and I think that they can build around that, assuming that they're going to be playing from the lead most of the time, which means that those guys can really just, stick their ears back and go. And that's what you want out of your defensive ends and out of your defensive line as a whole. I think they're a contender. Before the season, I picked on the Undrafted podcast, which I produce over at the Undroppables with host Jax Falcone. I picked the entire NFC West to get 10 wins because I thought they were all that good. And I am not regretting my Cardinals pick so far. I think they're going to make the playoffs. And I think that once you get to the NFL playoffs where it's one game you win or you go home, I think there's going to be very few offenses that can keep up with the Cardinals, even though I don't think Cliff Kingsbury is a very good coach. I just think Kyler Murray is that good. And if it's not Stafford, I think Kyler Murray is probably the front runner for MVP right now.
Yeah, I agree. And our next contender or pretender is the Raiders, sitting at 3-0, who have faced the Ravens, the Steelers, and the Dolphins. Donks, are they a contender or pretender?
Oh, don't
hate me,
Tommy. I think they're probably a pretender. And part of that is because I feel like every year they do this and they get your hopes up to you want to cheer for them. And obviously this is the best that they've started in a while and probably the best that they've looked. But you look at those games, they beat a bad Steelers team. And the Steelers are not an easy win by any means. I know they beat the Bills week 1, but the Steelers they're washed. I think Big Ben is totally cooked. So I'm not throwing that up in the air and throwing a celebration because they beat the Steelers. They did beat the Ravens, who are a good team, and the Miami Dolphins have a fantastic secondary, a great defense. Those were also two really close games. They were very much, flip a coin type of games. And obviously you have to win those. To be a great team, you have to win those. But they're a couple plays away from being 1-2. And obviously, yeah, I get it. That goes both ways. You could say that about so many teams and so many wins and so many games, but I'm just not totally convinced. I think they're kind of there. They're a little bit above the Broncos for me. I'm willing to believe in them. I'm not totally mind made up yet, but as of right now, I don't really see them being a true contender. I think they are maybe smack dab in the middle, which is a non-answer and my way of getting out of it.
Yeah, I don't know. I would love to call them a contender, and I think that there is a real possibility here that they are, but it almost feels too good to be true. Like the way they're playing feels like it might blow up any day now, and I think that that's what's holding me back from calling them a complete contender. Because everything that they've shown us so far is contender worthy, but like I said, it feels like any day now it's going to blow up in their face, and I don't want it to. I would love for them to make a deep postseason run, but I'm kind of stuck in this middle ground where as of right now I'm calling them contender, but I'm predicting that it's going to end up being pretender.
You really just want them to beat a team and not have to think twice about it. I mean, it would just be a good feeling. But that does take us to the 49ers that are 2-1. They've faced the Lions, the Eagles, and the Packers. Their only loss being to the Packers. and I believe they're actually in third place in the NFC West right now because the Seattle Seahawks are sitting at 1-2. But what do you think about the 49ers?
Ooh, I don't know. This one's tricky for me. I don't know. I think I might have to give them a pretender. I don't know. I don't really like the way they're playing. I think the wins were not very like pretty and like contender worthy. I think Jimmy G looks good. I think just that the team as a whole doesn't really look like it meshes very well right now. I don't know. I think I'm giving them the pretender role. I think the issues that they're having with running back, staying healthy and, putting up like reliable good numbers from a specific one or two people is going to hurt them in the long run. And I don't you have Ayuk there who's really not doing anything. You have Debo who is producing, but I don't know. It feels like so much uncertainty and week to week, like what 49ers are we going to get this week, that I'm going to have to give them the pretender role.
Yeah, I agree with you. They're a pretender for me. I think they're a good team. I think it's even likely that they make the playoffs, I guess, because I think they're going to win a lot of games, or at least enough games. I do think that there's a decent chance they finish in last in the NFC West. And I mean, looking at the wins they had, they barely beat, like, the Eagles were winning the majority of that game, and the Niners were letting them do it. Like, the Eagles didn't really deserve to be winning, and that game, considering what the Eagles did, the Niners should have blown them out, and they didn't. They gave up a huge lead to the Lions, who maybe are better than we think they are, and they had a close game against the Packers on national television, and that's great, but I just don't know. There's something about them that even if they make the playoffs, I think that they're good enough to beat bad teams, and they are not good enough to beat the best teams. And I think at the end of the day, if I put them up against any of these NFC teams that I expect to be in the playoffs, I'd expect them to lose, and that makes them a pretender for me. I don't even think they're really going to be able to make noise. And maybe I'll eat my words on that, but that is my thought.
Yeah, I think everything you said I completely agree with. I don't know. There's a lot of teams, and I think we're going to keep going through contender or pretender next week that we could look at, with another game under our belt with a couple more teams. But I don't know. I hope we eat our words. Like I as a fan of football, I hope you wish the best for
I hope
every
they're
team.
all good.
But exactly, and
I hope
people
they all
hate.
go.
Yep.
It came to say 8-8, 9-8. They all make the playoffs. It'll be great.
Exactly. It would be so fun.
Hey, can you imagine if the Giants went 9-8? That'd be wild.
That would actually be insane because they can't. I can't even find 8 teams left on the schedule that they could go 8 and 9. I can't find it. So anyway, we're going to transition a little bit. Before I do that, I'm going to read you a little message from our sponsor, Analyst Depot. Analyst Depot is your go-to source for all of your fantasy football analyst needs. This place has an amazing suite of tools to help you be the best fantasy analyst that you can. Tools that show you your player shares, free reports on player and defensive performances week to week, and the best of all is their amazing projection wizard. The thing basically does your own team by team projections for you. Super easy. It helps and breaks down the whole process with step-by-step instructions and helps you make smart projections with historical data all right in front of you. If you want to access that, just go to analystdepot.com and sign up for a free account.
And for the last thing that we're going to talk about today, we wanted to kind of look at some of these rookie quarterbacks.
We talk a lot about rookie quarterbacks, and looking at rookie quarterbacks, a lot of the rookie seasons from people like Elway and Manning and Aikman, and how, they started out slow and they got benched and all of this, but we have seen very underwhelming performances from our rookie QBs this year, which was a year that the QB class was one of the most highly anticipated class in decades, that we had such high aspirations for a lot of these people, and a lot of hopes have kind of been smashed through 3 weeks. And I know it's only through 3 weeks and they're still adjusting, but there has been a lot of these welcome to the NFL moments week to week. So let's break down some of these rookie quarterbacks.
Sure. So I'm going to start with, well, first of all, I want to get kind of Trey Lance out of the way. He's been in for, I think, like 2 plays, and he has 2 touchdowns. It's been a little bit more than that, not a lot more than that. He's very efficient. I'll give him that, and he's probably not going to see the field until the Niners start losing games or Jimmy G gets injured. So as of right now, I think he is the least disappointing because we have very little to be disappointed in, which is great for him. And great for any Trey Lance truther, because as of right now, you can just claim that he's the best rookie quarterback, and I don't know what anyone's going to say to you to argue with you about that.
No, they're not gonna. They can't have anything to say. You have 2 touchdowns and 2 plays. They like you. There's nothing to say. You can't say it's good or bad because you don't have enough sample size to figure it out.
And he did always feel like he was a little bit farther away from the other guys in terms of starting day one. So not anything too surprising there. And then that I want to kind of transition into what I'm viewing as maybe the least interesting of the ones that are left of the major 5+1, whom is Mack Jones, who has been really exactly what I thought he was going to be so far. He's weirdly probably had the best season. It hasn't been anything special. And I don't mean that in a bad way. He's on an adequate offense with not great weapons. He's been a game manager that relies heavily on the run game and running a, not like a deep passing attack type of offense. He's not asked to do a lot.
A lot of checkdowns.
Yeah, but he's he has definitely shown the traits that made him a first-round pick and what made him attractive coming out of Alabama, which is just his overall football IQ and his ability to run this offense. And, that's probably really exactly what you'd want to see out of him if you're a Patriots fan or if you're a fan of him coming out, because I think he showed exactly what you were hoping to get out of him. I don't think you were expecting if you were, then you were wrong. But I don't think you should have been expecting to get a guy who's going to go out there and sling the ball all over the field day one and take risks and, play like Brett Favre out there rushing for whatever and throwing outside the pocket and all this. I think he's had a safe and not very exciting start to the season, but good nonetheless.
Yeah, and if you're a Patriots fan, you have to be happy of all the stories that you've heard of Mack Jones off the field too. Things like the fact that he and his girlfriend run plays in their backyard, so he gets a better feel for movement rather than just everything being on a piece of paper. Stuff that he reads both the offensive and defensive playbooks to get a better feel for how that's going to play out on the field. So you have to be happy with his drive, and I think adequate is the best way. The performance has been satisfactory, I think, so far. I think that's the best way to put it. Nothing spectacular, but if you're a Patriots fan, I also think you have to be happy that you have some of the same traits that Tom Brady had, right? This excellent game manager, this great leader, a pocket passer for the most part. So I think you have to be happy in it, and it's comfortable. And as a Patriots fan, Belichick. I mean, we all know Bill Belichick, and if you expected anything other than this, I think you were kind of out of your mind. They weren't going to throw him in these insane, crazy situations and throw in, 70-yard passes every drive. So I think this is exactly what everyone expected, and I think that's perfectly good for Mack Jones. As an Alabama fan, I think this is exactly what I was expecting too, and I'm happy to just not see him perform like some of the other rookie QBs have. I think adequate is something I'm very happy with for Mack Jones right now.
Yeah, and I think he's probably the only one that can say that so far, maybe with the exception of Davis Mills, weirdly enough. But, we'll move on to the first overall pick, the guy that you actually almost forgot to put on this list, which is Trevor Lawrence. He has been rough, to say the least. Obviously, I kind of give him a little bit of a break knowing that his head coach is Urban Meyer, who I think sucks and is terrible, and I don't like him. But he is last in the NFL in completion percentage. He has the 4th worst adjusted completion percentage according to PFF. He has more interceptions than touchdowns, a 5-to-7 ratio touchdown to interception. He is the 3rd worst passing grade in the NFL according to PFF. And at the same time, his ADOT is at a 9.7, which is average depth of target, how deep he's throwing the ball on an average target to one of his pass catchers, which is tied for 5th in the NFL with Russ. That's very high. He's throwing deep
Yeah.
balls a lot. He's also throwing a lot, where the Jaguars are 9th in attempts, in pass attempts in the NFL. And also his offense sucks. And I have no clue what Urban Meyer is doing. I don't think that he's helping Trevor Lawrence in the slightest. I think he's kind of leaving him out on an island to either sink or swim, which maybe that's a decent tactic for the number 1 overall pick, who is touted as this generational talent. But at the same time, I would have loved to see him get a little bit of help. And I think that his wide receivers are doing that to an extent, but he's just been extremely, extremely inefficient, if not flashing at times.
Yeah, and I think it's another situation of the entire scheme is not working in Trevor Lawrence's favor. And you and I have talked off screen about, expectation management for Trevor Lawrence specifically, going into the season, and before this podcast even started, about you kind of had to temper your expectations with Trevor Lawrence, because there were people out there who were like, Trevor Lawrence, generational talent. He's going to come in and we're going to win more than half of our games and we're going to make a playoff run and we're going to do all that. Like, that is not what I expected. But I also didn't expect it to be this bad. I think the adjusted completion percentage is something that's alarming to me. I think that's probably the most alarming stat. And third worst passing grade in the NFL is absolutely mind-boggling. I would expect a lot more from this kid. Even I understand that this entire organization was overturned in the offseason and that he has a first-time NFL coach who, I understand all that, but still, I just think there's also things missing here in terms of game management and football IQ that I was kind of hoping to see from Trevor by now that I'm not really seeing. I'll see maybe a flash of it, 1 or 2 in a game, but I was looking for a little bit more of this first overall pick status from Lawrence, for actual football aside, more of the game management and the leadership qualities.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not worried yet. I don't think anyone is. I don't think that's what you were saying, because the Jaguars are a bad team. I mean, they had the number 1 overall pick last year for a reason. They're a bad team. They have been for a pretty long time, and it's going to take some time to change that. And you just hope to see flashes from Trevor Lawrence on a bad team right now. But speaking of bad teams, Zack Wilson, the number 2 overall pick, plays for the Jets, who suck still. He is having a very similar season to Trevor Lawrence. He is second to last in the NFL in completion percentage, behind only Trevor Lawrence. He is the 7th worst adjusted completion percentage according to PFF, the 9th worst PFF passing grade, the 2nd most pressured quarterback in the NFL after losing Mekhi Becton, which sucks and obviously plays a huge factor in all of this. But that offense is a mess. It seems like they have no clue what to do with him. They brought over the offensive coordinator from San Fran, a Kyle Shanahan disciple, in hopes to kind of, be able to run that type of thing there, but they just don't have the personnel. The offensive line is trash. The wide receivers are fine, but I mean, not anywhere close to the level, especially of yards after the catch, of Brandon Ayuk, Deebo Samuel, and George Kittle. The running backs are not, well, I'd say they're not what they have in San Francisco, but honestly, Kyle Shanahan would probably trade an entire draft to have Michael Carter at this point, after all of his running backs have died on the field. But it just feels like they have no clue what to do. And Zack Wilson, there are times when he's playing and you watch him make a throw and you're just like, that's why he went 2nd overall. That's why people were like, oh, he's the next Mahomes, which is a stupid comparison because he has the athletic traits to be able to make that throw. But unlike Mahomes, he'll then go and just make some of the dumbest throws I've ever seen, the worst passes, the things that never should have even been attempted. And there's a reason. I believe he had 4 interceptions in 1 half in one of the games this season. So
it was against the Patriots.
Yep, he is not.
He threw like
good.
4. It was like 3 back-to-back. Like, he threw an interception. The other team did what they did. He got back on the field, threw an interception, and again and again and again. It wasn't like there were a couple of plays in between. Like, it was like 3 interceptions back to back to back.
Yep, exactly. He's looked very bad.
And it just feels like this Jets team kind of has no identity. Oh my God, there's a huge bug. But it feels like this Jets team has no identity right now. And okay, I'm gonna have to get a paper towel and kill that bug. I'll be right back.
That's fine. So that being said, Speaking of an offense that has no identity and has no clue what they're doing, Justin Fields. He plays for the Chicago Bears. He was drafted in the first round. He was the 4th quarterback taken after Trey Lance, Zack Wilson, and Trevor Lawrence. He looked lost on Sunday in his first career start in relief of Andy Dalton, and I don't even blame him. It was Look, Justin Fields made mistakes. He looked like a rookie at times, and that's perfectly fine, but Matt Nagy did nothing to help his rookie quarterback in his first career start. Two of Justin Fields' greatest strengths, I believe, coming out of the draft were his ability to throw the deep ball, which was he threw a beautiful deep ball, and his ability to be a dual threat quarterback out of the pocket. He's able to run the ball. He ran, I believe, a 4.4 40, which was one of the best we've ever seen, if not the best off the top of my head for someone to be drafted in the first round. And he had no rushing attempts, no planned rushing attempts. They were doing they were doing 5-man protection, no extra blockers, and they were doing quick 3-step drop, get it out of his hands quick. And that's not what he excels at. It looked like an Andy Dalton offense. And that is not how to maximize Justin Fields, because guess what? Jason Peters, 99-year-old legend, going to be a Hall of Famer, Eagles are probably going to retire his number. He's a Hall of Famer. He's a legend. He cannot block Myles Garrett. And Myles Garrett ate Justin Fields alive. And I don't know why you wouldn't go in with a game plan that would at least slightly neutralize him. Move Justin Fields out of the pocket. Try and buy him a little time to throw it down the field to open up the offense. Instead, they just had him trying to get the ball out of his hands as quick as possible. That is not the best way to maximize Justin Fields. And Matt Nagy did nothing, absolutely nothing, to make Justin Fields' life any easier. Yes, he's a rookie. No, he did not perform well, but it is equally, if not a lot more, Matt Nagy's fault than Justin Fields' fault.
That's exactly what I was about to say. It doesn't feel like a Justin Fields problem. It doesn't feel like his problem. It feels like a Matt Nagy problem. And the way he's managing his quarterback situation makes no sense. He said all 3 were up for the starting job this week. And it's just
Andy Dalton's practicing, so
yeah, it feels like not the way you want to run your quarterback room. And like you said, Justin Fields is not your average quarterback. You have to have a game plan tailored to his strengths, and currently you don't. That offense had, I think, 47 total yards this week. That's not a one person, one position problem. That's an entire team problem. That's an organization problem. It's a coaching problem, and I really wish we could get an actual real look at Justin Fields in an NFL game with plays that are at least somewhat tailored to his strengths. I'm sorry about my bug interruption.
You're fine. Matt Nagy pretending that switching the quarterback is going to solve anything is him deflecting the blame from himself and his horrible offensive game plan. And that's a shame, because I think Justin Fields is very talented. But last but not least, before we get out of here, Davis Mills, I don't think there's a ton to say. He had one start, his first career start. Obviously, he played a little bit in the game before. He came in relief for Tyrod Taylor when Tyrod got injured. He's going to be playing a decent bit this season, but his first start, he looked okay. He's 3rd to last in the NFL in completion percentage. He has a very bad passing grade as well. His ADOT is also pretty high. It's 7th, which is tied with Aaron Rodgers and Derek Carr. But unfortunately, I think it'll take a lot for him to really ever get a real shot in the NFL, because as a 3rd-round pick, the Houston Texans are going to have high draft picks probably for the next couple of years. And the fact of the matter is that having Davis Mills on their roster is not going to stop them from drafting a highly touted quarterback with one of those picks. I don't remember when they get their next first-round pick, honestly. I know they traded them all away to get David Johnson or whatever happened, and the Laramie Tunsil. But he's the type of guy that probably won't ever get much of a chance, because he's not going to make them good enough to not have a top pick. And it's unfortunate, because I think he has some talent, but I think the more likely scenario is a long-term backup in the NFL just based on his draft position. And yeah.
Yeah, I completely agree. Unless he ends up in a situation where somebody's in dire need of a backup that will actually get a chance, or in need at this exact moment. They don't have enough faith in their depth that, maybe not this season, but like next season, that they don't have enough faith in their depth at mid-season that they end up, pulling him and starting him for the end of the season. But I see him at best being a backup quarterback for a couple of years. But I will give him a lot of props for the way he played. I think he looked great out there for someone who jumped in because your starter was out on IR. And I'm excited to watch him play. I root for his success, and I hope he proves to all of us, to his coaches, to everybody, that he can be more than just a lifelong backup in the NFL, because he looked good, especially on an offense like the Texans. I think he looked really good out there. And
he has a very large neck.
He has a very large neck.
It's very large. It's like a giraffe.
I know. He really does. He looks like, who said it? Adam said he looked like Mike Lennon, and I said it's the neck.
Well,
it's 100% the neck.
I think that's a great last note, talking about Davis Mills' neck. Real quick, because I'm sure you're all keeping track at home like I am. Ashley beat me again in our underdog 2-person draft for the Sunday slate. We are going to play again, but we're not going to draft live on the air.
We will tweet out our results from the Undroppables our teams from the Undroppables Playbook, and keep you guys posted on our Sunday slates. Dunks is sad.
I'm 0-3. I'm very angry
on Sunday slates. We accidentally did a Thursday one after last week's show. He did win that one, so I will give him that. So he's technically like 1-4.
No, I'm not.
But it doesn't matter because we're counting only Sunday slates, and he's 0-3. So maybe he'll get his first win. But while we're on the topic of underdog, Underdog also sponsors this podcast, and I wanted to let you guys know that Underdog is currently running their Best Ball Resurrection. And you can enter for $10, and you have a chance there are $100,000 in prizes, but you can win up to $20,000 for coming in first place. So make sure you sign up. That runs through October 14th, and the actual Best Ball tournament runs from week 6 to 17. You can use promo code Undroppable when you sign up, and they'll get you a $10 match deposit, and that basically pays for you to join Best Ball Resurrection. On TikTok, I said that, the resurrection, it's for like spooky season, that fantasy football doesn't have to be spooky anymore. So you can, correct all those mistakes you made the first time and do better and enter promo code Undroppable. It'll also get you exclusive access to our Undroppables Discord, where we talk about all things football, fantasy, setting roster lineups, talking fantasy football strategy, talking DFS and sports betting. So make sure you use promo code Undroppable, sign up for Underdog wherever you're allowed to, and join Best Ball Resurrection for your chance at $100,000 in prizes, including one grand prize of $20,000.
I hope I win that. I probably won't, though.
That's okay. I think you have to beat me first.
That was mean. On that note, I think that is a perfect time to get going. Thank you guys for tuning in. Thank you for listening to another week. We will be back next week, 8 p.m. live on Twitter.
Eastern Standard Time.
Eastern Standard Time. Thank you. I always forget that there is more to the United States, honestly.
Than Philly, yeah.
I mean, can you blame me? I am Michael. You can find me on Twitter at mpduncan75. That is Ashley. You can find her on Twitter at Ashley_Marie with 2 A's in Ashley. Ashley, any closing thoughts for our listeners?
No, thanks for listening to my Giants rant for a while. We ran a little bit late today, but it's everything you could find here at the Undroppables Playbook. A little bit of fantasy, a little bit of football, and everything in between. And I'm curious to see who we're going to put a fork in next week. Is it going to be the Eagles?
No. No, I'm not willing to. Not just yet. I need to keep my sanity for at least a few more weeks.
Okay.
So we'll see.
Fine.
But
we'll see.
On that note, thank you for tuning in, everyone, and we will see you next week.
Bye, guys.